Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the DeTalented Podcast. I am Brian DeTalent, your host, and we are super excited tonight. So before we get any further, don't forget, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Click like on the video, comment on the video. It'll just take you a few seconds. It'll mean a great deal to us. As always, I am here with what we call you last week, Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Jimmy DeTalent. Jimmy, say hi.
Hey, how's it going? I am super excited. New year, same me. Still going to keep doing the things I do.
It is a
2026,
It's
baby.
not the same you though, man, because the audience aren't going to see this, but you've got an Apple Watch.
I
on
do.
now.
I have an Apple Watch now. That's my journey for weight loss this year. Got that and a walking pad.
Welcome to the party. Tell them about the walking pad.
Yeah? Did you get yeah?
Oh, I've had one.
Oh, have you?
It's not helped, but
okay,
I've got one.
This probably won't help you.
So that's like a treadmill where you can use it sitting down, right?
Yes, but I don't do that, to be clear.
I don't
I'm
buy
standing up.
I don't buy that for a second, bro. Well, dude, tonight's the night we've been pushing. We've been super excited for. We have Miss Holly Dunn, the soul survivor, in the studio with us. She's going to tell her story, and we're just going to have a little conversation with her. Holly, thanks so much for being here. If you would, just say hi to everybody.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Like I said, we've been real excited about this. We, for somehow or another, we ended up with this for the Christmas season. We did this true crime series, and we talked about serial killers in one of those episodes. And one of the serial killers we spoke about was the railroad killer. In that conversation, it just happened to come up that that somebody from Evansville, which is the area that we're all from here, it was affected by that, and we posted a couple videos, and we posted a TikTok video on it, and Holly responded to that TikTok video, and she's like, "Hey, yo, that's me, dude. I'm the soul survivor," and I was like, "Yes, you are," and so that was pretty amazing. I don't know if you, for those watching, if you know it or if you don't, Holly has authored a book, and that book is entitled Soul Survivor, correct?
That's correct.
And I got to dive into that, and man, I was pretty amazed at what I read. Especially, I think it was the first 3 chapters where you pretty much broke down the events of what happened that night. And so, without any further ado, kind of tell us where you are and where that led you, because for one thing, one of the most impressive things to me is that when things like that in life happen, we kind of have one or two choices. We either let it defeat us and steamroll us, and we've seen a lot of people who have been through horrible situations and to not pointing any blame at that, but some people just react in a way to where they go into kind of like a self-destruct mode, or they go into deep depression, which is completely understandable. But the other option is to say, you know what, I'm going to use this, and I'm going to do good things with it. And you've certainly done that. You're the founder of Holly's House here in the area. It's in Evansville, where it's a shelter for battered women and battered children, correct?
You're right. It's not a shelter, but it is a interview location for victims of intimate crime. So it doesn't serve as a shelter, but we do serve victims,
right?
Sexual assault victims as well as domestic violence.
Okay, so it's actually where they can go, and they can. So if someone is abused or has a crime committed against them like that, they can come there and they can reveal it, and then
right, and then also get services. We connect them to the services that are available in Evansville. We utilize the Albion Fellows Bacon Center and the YWCA. We connect with the Lampion Center, the services that they may need in the future.
Okay, that's
so
awesome.
a triage of sorts.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. And so, like I said, you've taken this thing that was awful. There's no other way to put it. It was completely it's just horrific. I know we looked at the story and we were reading little snippets and tidbits and things about it. But if you read the first 3 chapters of the book, it's pretty detailed on the way it went down. Here's this young college girl with a new boyfriend. They're excited in their relationship. They go to a party. They go take a walk, like a single one of us has done. And then all of a sudden they find themselves in the middle of this nightmare is kind of what kind of went down. So I'm gonna leave with you then and let you kind of tell the story and how it's kind of led you and where you're at now.
Sure. And I want everybody to know that I'm going to talk about my story and I'm going to talk about it tonight. But if you want to go and Google my name, you will see, many interviews that I've done and my website and, just so many things that I've done that are about me that they can actually read my story and see my story. So if I don't give a whole lot of detail tonight, and I tend to not, that you can find it somewhere. So if you want to know the story in detail, you can find it.
Oh, absolutely. I would encourage everybody, buy the book. I'm telling you, if you want to hear the story, the first 3 chapters of the book alone is if you want to hear the story, that's the story. It's not your whole story, but it's the events I think that unfolded that night. If that's what they're looking for, that's kind of like the DeTalented Podcast. We want to get more of the, who you are and as a person and how that at night kind of shaped you into that, into who you are.
And I know that, that night it was so, it's hard to even fathom just how you don't expect anything like that to happen. And when it does, just the survival mode that you go into, that was the most amazing part. It was that I did things that night that I don't know where that came from, like stuck my tongue out when we were gagged so that the gag didn't work. And was trying to dig into the ground because I thought if I was taken away, I wanted somebody to know that I had been there. The survival mode things that came to my mind, I don't really know where they came from.
Right. They're not like things you had trained for.
I think that's an instinct, right? The will to live, the will to survive, right?
And I definitely had that. I remember thinking if I make it through this, and when I do make it through this, I will get you someday to my attacker.
Wow.
And in general, I was raped and beaten and stabbed. I was very much hurt physically. But I don't know how much time I laid there before I got up to get help. I knew that my boyfriend had been hit. And I knew that he was much worse off than me. I even think I knew that he had passed away, but my mind wouldn't even let me go over to him or check on him because I think I knew that something was really wrong. And so, I don't even know how long I laid there before I got up to get help. I got up to get help and I walked about 200 yards to a house that was nearby. I don't know. I know why I chose it. I think that I saw the television was on and the lights were on in the house. And this was at 2-something in the morning. So when the lights were on, I didn't knock on a door. I didn't ring a doorbell. I just walked into this person's house. And I think that I scared them. I think, they encountered a bloody person. They didn't know if I was there to hurt them, if somebody was coming to hurt me more, and I didn't know that either. I remember thinking when I got up to get help, okay, did he really just leave me here alive? He tried to kill me, but is he really just going to leave now? I couldn't believe that he had left me there.
Do you think he thought you were dead?
I think he thought I was dead. I think I was knocked out to the point that I was very shallowly breathing. I think that he thought he had killed me.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy to me that help was the house that you made it to was only 200 yards away, which 200 yards is a long way. I'm just talking about how this guy, man, this Angel Resendez, attacked people, so blatantly, and it was always near, I know it was always near railroad tracks, right? That obviously because of his name, but if you look, some of his other crimes, he would intrude into people's homes that were near railroad tracks, and he would do some disgusting things. I talked about how he would eat food and leave big messes out on the counter, pretty much act like it was no big deal. You said something in the book when you were talking, and it kind of struck me. And this is going to sound like it's just one of those statements, I guess, that I don't understand. Is you said you really didn't even understand how that, because Chris, your boyfriend was a pretty big guy, right? He was a pretty big guy, and Angel Resendez was like tiny, right? And I'm surprised. This guy must have been. For my point is to be that, he must have been so brutal to be able to do what he did when he was as small as he was. You know what I'm saying? And it always shocked. I couldn't believe. And so even in some of the videos I watched when like I said, this is a guy statement. You know, this is a guy statement. To me, it's like, what this dude, this guy's so little. You know, I can't believe one of the men, because he had tagged men all the time, and it's just so surprising to me how. And this is, I guess, where I'm going with it is, I think there was something evil inside of him that drove him to the point where, you know, it wasn't just him. You know, I often say this on the show is there's a difference between, you know, people who are bad and make bad decisions and bad mistakes and people who are evil.
Right.
And, you know, this guy was an evil guy.
Yeah. And I mean, we all make some bad mistakes.
We all make
right?
bad mistakes, right.
That's part of growing up. That's
Absolutely.
part of life. And I believe that too. I believe that there's evil. And, you know, unfortunately, I hope that we can get rid of it someday. I know. But I don't know that we can.
Well, one day it'll be gone.
One day it's
going to
yep.
go away.
No, that's true.
When the king comes back,
that is correct.
That's right.
Yep.
So you make it to help, and you've been through all of this stuff, and I'm assuming so the people's house that you go into, they called for assistance.
Yes, he called 911 for me, and he actually was from Owensboro, which is really close by.
Yeah.
Ended up being from Owensboro, and I mean, his name was Chad. I didn't know that. I mean, I remember him to the point of I remember him. I was asking him for a glass of water. I think I knew my jaw was broken, and so my mouth was closing weird, and I was talking weird, I'm sure. But I didn't know it at the time. But asking for water when you're in trauma is a sign of going into shock.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that at the time, but I was like craving water. Like it's like I couldn't. My mouth was so dry, and I mean, I couldn't even he brought me water, and I couldn't even raise my head to drink the water. I was just like, pour it in my mouth, you know, like I just couldn't even lift my head. And that's the most I remember about him, because I don't remember, evidently there were about 15 police cars and 5 ambulances and all kinds of people that ended up coming to this house after the 911 call was made. And I don't remember any of it. You would think, you know, I was pretty conscious through a lot of this, but I mean, I don't remember even seeing a police car or an ambulance. So, I mean, I obviously at that point knew that help was on the way, and I think I let myself, you know,
not a sigh of relief, but okay, I made it through.
I'm a little surprised you remember as much as you do.
I am too, really, honestly.
Yeah, because you know, like you said, you were beaten, and you know, and not only that, but like you said, when you go into shock, our bodies do what we can. We talked about this the other day. To live, right? So when we go into shock, it's because your body's trying to, hey, I got to do what it takes to stay alive. So whether that's your mind shutting things off or whatever, I mean, and the crazy thing is I remember this from the book, because this is something that I didn't realize. I don't know if a lot of people know about the story. Is at first it was you and your boyfriend, and you were going to take a walk, and then a couple of his buddies tagged along, right? And so during that walk, you're like, oh, man, what are you guys doing? You know, go away. You guys are, you know, get
intruding.
away.
Yeah, we want to
intruding,
spend some time alone, right?
Yeah. And, you know, and then this Angel Resendez had been watching the entire time. And when I guess the buddies finally caught the hint, they ran out of beer is what it was, right? And so they're like, we're going to go back to the house. And then I think you said in the book that when he walked out, he even said, where'd your friends go? Mm-hmm. So he knew, you know, he was watching that whole time until it was just the two of you.
Right. He didn't approach when there was 4 of us.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So and how, you know, how crazy is that, man, that here's this guy that's been he was all over the country. I mean, he went all over the place. He's from Mexico. His attacks were all over the entire U.S. You know what's funny is what I remember is I didn't go. I went to after high school. We talked about it. We're the same age. I went to work, and I think by that time, how old were you when that happened?
20.
You were 20. So I'm not remembering right, because then I wouldn't have been. What I'm thinking happened is not right, because the numbers don't line up. Look, I'm catching myself before I tell an inaccurate thing.
Half truth.
Yeah, but I do remember. I remember hearing about it.
I mean, he was on the run for almost 2 years after our attack. So I mean, this happened in 1997, and then in 1999 is when he was actually apprehended. Okay. So it wasn't until there was a manhunt for him in 99. So 99, he was in the news. He was, we were doing America's Most Wanted a lot. Like, we were trying to catch him. So in 99, there would have been a lot about him.
I bet I heard about it when the court case was going on.
And that was in 2000.
Yeah.
So,
and that's when me and Laura got married. That's what I was saying. So when me and Laura first got married, we were both working at Bristol down there. I remember hearing the radio story. That's where and that's where I heard that this, a person from Evansville, had been, attacked by this serial killer. And I was like, what? I was like, what happened? And didn't think about it a lot after that, because it's not something that you really hear about until we did the show, and we started talking. And so I started watching some documentaries about it, and I seen some other shows that you were on, and you were talking about it. But yeah, it's so surreal. I mean, you just think that things like that are so far from you. Right. That's the thing. Like, I know, like, in your mind, you're like, this don't happen to me. This happens to other people. This is something you read about, something that you see on TV, something that you you hear other people talk about. I can't imagine being in that moment. Let me ask you this: when did you realize or find out after the attack that it was this guy who was wanted for all of these other murders?
Well, it was almost 2 years. I didn't find out until they connected the crime in Texas that had occurred. So, I mean, we had no idea. We had DNA that was collected from me. There were no fingerprints, though. And so, I mean, the DNA database at this time didn't really exist.
Not what it is today.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we didn't know who had done this. And I mean, we went almost 2 years. I remember, working with my detective, and I remember him saying to me, the only way we're going to really probably catch this guy is that he's going to do it again. And so I was hoping that wasn't the case, right. but that's basically what happened. Sure. And my detective, I didn't think he was working. He was with the Lexington Police Department, and his name is Detective Craig Sorrell, and this was a time when you could go into the police department and, it wasn't on lockdown. So, I would go to the police station and make sure he was doing his job.
Right.
And I would go in and they'd be like, Holly, good to see you. Come on in, and Craig's upstairs, go on up. And I would go upstairs and I would check on my detective and make sure that he was actually working. And, that to me felt like at least I was doing something, right, because I wanted to be doing something. Sure. I wanted to try to help catch him, but there was really nothing I could do. And I didn't know exactly what my detective was doing because he wasn't sharing that with me. He wasn't telling me the absolute truth. I wasn't privy to that information. But he was trying to find crimes that were similar. And, I think he really thought that the railroad tracks were something to look at. That was, he had probably come off of the railroad, and that a railroad car, and that was something to look at. And so he was looking for crimes that had occurred near railroad tracks, and came upon this crime in Texas, outside of Houston, that had happened. And he was going to submit the DNA, and I don't know anything about DNA, but to describe it in layman's terms, Kentucky did their DNA in oranges, and Texas did their DNA in apples. Right. And apples and oranges did not connect. And it took, I don't know. It felt like months. It didn't take that long, but I think it took like 6 weeks for us to get the DNA in the Apple format, right? So
Right.
we had to get the DNA in that format.
Correct.
And it took that long to get it. I mean, just felt like forever. But once they finally got the DNA in the right format and submitted and they had fingerprints and all kinds of things from this crime that had happened in Texas. And the DNA matched 100%. I mean, there was no question. And so I never had to do a lineup. I never had to pick out this guy. I never had to find, him. The DNA spoke for itself. I never had to pick him out of a lineup.
And
Right.
that happened in 99 in Texas.
Yes,
So then in these 2 years from 97 to 99, you remained in Lexington?
I did.
Okay.
I was in Lexington until 2000.
Okay. So then how long were you in the hospital for?
I was only in the hospital for 5 days.
Oh,
I
wow.
had a broken jaw and a broken eye socket. And for the broken eye socket, they couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And the broken jaw, they wired my mouth shut. And I had to wait 5 days for the swelling to go down, but also because the doctors were really busy at the University of Kentucky Hospital because there were a lot of bar fights. And the same guy that does your jaw surgery is the same guy that takes care of guys' knuckles when they get in fights.
Bruisers at the bar.
Same
Wow.
people, yeah.
Sure.
But they did have to wait for my swelling to go
So
down too.
then 5 days and you're out of the hospital, right?
Yeah, I mean, I probably should have stayed a little longer.
Yeah, I would think.
My parents wanted to get me home as soon as possible.
Of course.
And so, I mean, my dad had my papers ready to go. Like I got out of surgery and literally they took me straight out of surgery.
So then did you come back to Evansville to
Recover.
recoup?
Yes, I came back to Evansville, and it was hard being here. Only because I felt like in Evansville, first of all, I had gotten the taste of independence in college, so
Yeah,
it was really
right.
hard to be back home, right? And second of all, that was where I needed to go to heal, and because I was sleeping 20 hours a day. I mean, I was sleeping all the time. So it was really good to be home, and I needed that to heal, but I could not wait to
Couldn't
go
wait
back
to get
to
back.
school.
How long were you here in Evansville?
About a month. I was in Evansville about a month. I actually went back to school, and my mouth was still wired shut. My mouth was wired shut for about 6 weeks, and for the 2 weeks that I was at school, and I got to where I could talk completely perfect with my mouth wired shut. But I did go back to school, and I lived in the sorority house at the time, and our cook in the sorority house made me my mom's chili every day for lunch because I drank all my meals through a straw.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so I drank my mom's chili for lunch and noodle soup for dinner, the packet kind. I could not have the can because I could taste the can. And that's all I ate every single day. And I drank Boost
Yep.
what now are protein shakes, but then
Like an Ensure
It was
or- yeah.
Boost energy drinks or whatever they were,
Right.
you know. And I would drink like an Oreo shake every day. And I lost 22 pounds, and I did not need to lose 22 pounds, but the doctors kept telling me you don't need to lose weight. You need to keep taking in calories. I was like, I'm drinking
trying.
2 Oreo shakes a day.
Yeah.
Like I cannot drink anymore.
What do you want
know?
me to do?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, man. It's just so crazy that you go from, that just goes to show you, how quick life changes. You know what I mean? You go from, a moonlit walk, with your boyfriend or girlfriend or with whoever you're with. And it's just like, it's like that in life. You never know. That's why it's so important to live your life every moment like you don't know what's coming next, because you don't. Never, I'm sure that you would say, never in a million years did you foresee anything happening. You thought you were going to go take a walk and you would be back, and you'd go back to, you left the party because it was kind of lame. You're probably going to plan on going back to the lame party, after you went and hung out for a while or whatever. And then, the next thing you know, you come up on this life-changing event. Let me ask you this. So they were caught in Texas. Now, the Texas case, was that the pastor and his wife? Is that who?
No, that was later on.
Okay.
This was I can't believe I forgot her name because I talk about them all the time, but I probably need to look it up. But she had twin daughters and was a doctor in Houston.
I think I remember reading about that. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So that happened, and they matched it. How long after the DNA match and all that? How long after that was it? What was it? I've got conflicting reports. One thing I've seen and read said his wife ended up turning him in because she was scared that they were going to get him in Mexico because of the bounties that had put out on him. And then I read the same thing, but it said that his sister had turned him in. I don't know which one's true, but how long after the DNA match from your case and the Houston case was it when that he was actually kind of turned in by whichever family member that it was?
Yeah, he was turned in by his sister.
Okay.
That was his sister coordinated with Drew Carter, who was the Texas Ranger that helped my attacker surrender. But he, the timing, I'd have to go back and look. I have like a timetable because I can't remember the time too. Obviously, so much time has passed.
Yes.
But it was 99 when we figured out who it was. And then his trial was in 2000. So there was basically a year that happened that nobody knew where he was. Nobody knew, he didn't have an address. Nobody knew how to find him. And it wasn't until his sister talked to him because she had some way to contact him. She lived in the United States. She lived in Texas.
Okay.
And his sister had some way to contact him. And that's when he turned himself in.
Okay.
But he had also, he had been apprehended by immigration services and let go back into Mexico because the computers, I don't know if you read this, but the computers at the immigration office did not coordinate with the FBI's. He was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list and was let go by immigration services back into Mexico, and then came back in the United States and killed 2 more people. And that was the pastor. It was in Illinois. He killed 2 more people in Illinois. And so, we have people that aren't in the world anymore because he.
So
I'm going to be real careful. I'm going to be real careful about that.
Well, he was.
I was going to say it hasn't changed much.
I know, right?
But the one good thing that it did make the computer. They did fix that computer glitch. So it was the one good thing that happened from that was, and I am told that I am constantly looking for the good, and that I get that, but there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
But it did fix the computer program.
Well, good.
And he was caught. So at least he turned himself in. Had all that not happened, that may have never happened.
Yes.
So, it happened the way it was supposed to.
So then, was his family aware of these crimes?
No. And I don't even think he had a common law wife. He did not have a legal wife, but he had a common law wife. And I don't even think his wife knew what he had done. I don't think his family.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
Hopefully she didn't know.
That's why,
Hopefully she didn't know and still choose to be his.
Right.
I didn't know. I didn't realize it was a common law wife. I didn't even know they had that because she lived in Mexico. Correct.
That's right. She lived in Mexico, and he had a daughter. He has a daughter. And I don't know. I've tried to research her a little bit, but I don't even know what her name was. But he did have a daughter, and she was a baby, I think, when he was captured. So I don't even think she knew him at all.
Yeah, that man. So that happens, and then because of, like I said, you are the sole survivor. It had to be. I'm sure it had its. I'm sure it was kind of like mixed feelings, but it had to be great to be able to go to that courtroom.
It was. I talk about the trial as one of the. Almost as hard as the attack. It was one of the hardest days of my life to be in the same room as him again. My boyfriend Chris's parents had given me. Chris had been cremated, and they gave me. Chris wore Birkenstocks. Those were his only shoes that he wore, and he was cremated with those Birkenstocks on. And Birkenstocks have metal clasps. And so the metal clasps were left over after he was cremated. And so his parents had given me these metal Birkenstock clasps, and they said just keep them with you when you're at the trial. Know that he's with you. That just remember him. Know that you're doing this for him. And so I mean, those kinds of things that people did for me have no idea the power that gave me. I mean, it kept me strong. Those little kinds of things like that got me through times that I don't know if I could have gotten through.
Well, it was reminding you that you're not only being your voice, you're being his voice,
right?
Because he wasn't able to be there, because this,
But I mean, the ceiling reminds me of it, because we were in a room before the trial, and it was a room just like a boardroom, and it was a drop ceiling like this. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with the metal clasp, and I was like, I just want to leave them here. I was like, I'm going to leave them here. I don't know how, but I had my dad stood up on a chair almost just like this, because they were around a board table. And so it was an office chair, a twirly one. Yeah. And my dad's standing up on this chair, lifting up one of the boards to the drop ceiling, and I threw the Birkenstock clasps up into the ceiling. I throw them up there, and he is putting down the tile from the ceiling and getting down from the chair, and the bailiff walks in to come and get me. And I mean, he literally looks like he's in trouble. Like he's got one foot on the chair and is looking at the bailiff going, don't pay any attention.
Don't ask.
Nothing's
he probably
going on
felt
here.
like he was so embarrassed, but it made me laugh so hard right before I go on the stand. And I mean, that's the kind of thing, when you can find humor in times that are just awful, it's such medicine, and it's something, there are times I use it as a defense mechanism, and there's times that it shouldn't happen. But I mean, at that point that helped me so much to just laugh. And I think about it now, that boardroom was probably renovated at some point, possibly, or those ceiling tiles were changed out, and those metal clasps fall down from there, and they're like, "What the heck is this?
What are these?"
Yeah. Like somebody did that one day, and they're like, "What the heck?"
But that's
is
cool
this?
though. That makes sense that you did that. I can totally get down with it. That was.
And that's the things if they knew quite the story behind those clasps.
That's the things when you find stuff. It's one of those. So when you find stuff, you can always say, man, this has a story.
Yeah.
What's the story to this? Whatever it is, like those clasps, that's a huge story.
Yeah.
That somebody probably was like, oh, what?
They probably threw them away, and they thought, what are these things?
Right.
Yeah.
But and like I said, I know it had to be hard, but at the same time to look and be like, yeah, you thought you got me, but look, here I am. I'm about to get you.
Yeah, and I mean, I cried through the entire thing. I mean, I didn't feel strong. I felt strong after I'd done it. But I mean, when they said, is the person who attacked you in the courtroom today, I didn't know they actually did that. I had only seen that done on television.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I had no idea that they actually did that. And I remember thinking, and I hadn't watched any of the trial because my prosecuting attorney told me not to. So I hadn't watched any of it. And so they said, and I had turned off my peripheral vision. I mean, he was on my left-hand side, and I had turned off my peripheral vision. I had not looked at him. And so I'm looking straight ahead at my family and the attorney, and I'm looking at the jury who's off to my right. And they say, is the person who attacked you in the courtroom today? And I think, yeah, he's here. This was his trial, right? He's here. And I remember my hearing going into my head, and I mean, I'm starting to get cold chills, right? And so then they're like, could you please tell us what he's wearing? And so I had to look at him, and it was the first time I had looked at him, and I look at him, and I mean, his eyes were black, and he had a smirk on his face. It wasn't a smile. It was just and I had just told the whole story of what had happened to Chris and I. And I mean, he had no emotion, and I remember saying he has on a white button-down shirt, and I thought I was going to faint. I mean, I started to have everything started sounding gurgled, and I mean, I was about to faint, and it happened so fast. They asked the defense, they said, the judge said, defense, do you have any questions? They were like, no, they didn't question me. And then the bailiff picked me up and carried me out of the courtroom before I could faint.
Wow.
Ooh.
You see that? So for me, I've got 4 boys. That's what I've got is 4 boys. I've got one that's 30 something, and then I've got twins that are 25, and my baby is 21. But after all of them boys, I have this little bitty granddaughter. I got to tell you, I can't imagine what it was like for your dad to sit in that courtroom. I would probably be a news story.
Oh, yeah. My dad was always like, just give me 5 minutes.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
Just give me 5 minutes.
Guarantee
I have a daughter, which is now his only daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
What I wouldn't do for her. You know?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. And that,
Without question.
that, like, I can't imagine being him having to sit through that, to sit through the story and then to look at him and look at, and you know, I know why he was sitting there with that smirk on his face with no emotions, because he's a psychopath. So he doesn't have the ability to feel emotion. He doesn't feel any remorse. He doesn't feel any of that. But I can't imagine, you know, like there's never only one victim or 2 victims in this case, right? I mean, your family were victims,
right?
Your friends were victims that you had just left at the party. Like, all of those people are affected by these decisions that these people like him, and I'll start getting rowdy, like this little scumbag idiot, you know, who, you know, I mean, like, honestly, I live my life trying to love people. I really do. I mean, that's what, you know, but
I do too.
But
I mean, I try to love people too.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's something that I did is I really compartmentalized all my feelings of anger, wanting to hurt him, wanting to, you know, the feeling of revenge, the feelings of those things that we don't really want to feel those things, you know, like, especially on a like all the time, you don't want to feel that way. And so I put those with him, and you know, he was sentenced to death and executed. He was executed in 2006. And when he was not in the world anymore, I let those feelings go with him. And I thought, well, he's not in the world anymore. I don't have to feel that way anymore because he's not here. And so that's one thing that, you know, and I never had an opinion on the execution, whether it should happen or not. It always just gave me I always had a feeling that somehow on some technicality he would get out. That something would happen,
right,
that he would be let out.
And then there again, your fears come in. So let me ask you this. Do you recall the feelings you had when they read that guilty verdict?
Well, I mean, I actually, they did the part of the trial where they decide if he's sane or insane, right? And then, and really that is just, do you know what you did was wrong, right? Or do you know the difference between right and wrong?
Right.
Is really what insane means. And then this was the penalty phase of the trial that I actually testified in. So they were deciding whether to give him life in prison or
so he was already guilty. Did he plead guilty?
No, he pleaded not guilty, but only because the Mexican consulate made him plead not guilty.
Okay.
He had said all along, I did this and I deserve everything I'm getting.
Okay.
And I did, you know, and he said that when he was executed, he gave a speech and he said, I let the devil rule my life. I deserve everything I'm getting. You did not deserve this. And I don't think he was talking specifically to me. I think he's talking to.
Were you there?
No, I did not go. But I think he was talking to, and talking possibly to a lot of the families. I think some of the family members of a lot of the victims. I mean, there were 15 people that he killed that we know of, and I think there were more. But you know, there were a lot of the family members of those other people that he had killed that did go to his execution. I don't know exactly who all was there, but I just figured I had already seen one person die in front of me. I didn't need to see another. And, you know, I didn't ever speak to him. I mean, I never, you know, I had the opportunity that I could have asked him questions or, you know, at least talked to him. And my detective had actually gone and talked to him before I did that because I wanted to know if he was even going to tell me anything that I needed to know. You know, I wanted to know why he chose us. I wanted to know, you know, what made him choose us? Like, who knows? I don't even know what I really wanted to know, but maybe just to be in the same room with him and hurt him is what I wanted to do. But I don't know. I think that I mean, my detective came back and said, he's not going to tell you anything that you want to know. He's talking gibberish and crazy. He's like, you're not going to get any answers to anything that you want to know. And so I was like, well, I don't need to talk to him. Like I don't need that. Like and he did cause all this turmoil in my life on this horrible day. And I had been focusing so much on good that had come from this horrible thing that had happened that I didn't want to do anything that focused on him. And I do now. I don't even really mention his name.
Right.
And that's by choice. I mean, I just don't think that things should focus on him. I mean, I get that people want to learn about serial killers, and I get that people are interested in that kind of story, and I get that. I mean, and I don't mind it at all, but it's just not going to be something that I'm talking about or seeking out.
Yeah, for me, I can say this. For me, I've always been way more interested. I'm interested in those. I am one of those ones that interested in the serial killer stories, but more so because of the stories like you're telling, right? I've always said if I had a chance, we talk I'm 50 years old. If I had a chance to go back, I say if my dreams are, I would love to be like an FBI, like working like the BAU kind of guy, or like be a profiler. That's what I want to do. And my wife's literally like, why would you want to do that? Like, because I want to catch these people from, who are out hurting these people. But honestly, I don't even think I'll just be honest. I don't think my temperament would allow me to do it. They'd
throw you out.
They would definitely throw me out. Like I said, I can't, that's why my first thought was like, how your poor dad, man, I can't imagine sitting in that courtroom and seeing you go through that and not,
It's probably a good thing that he had to go through a metal detector to
Yeah.
get in there.
Yes.
I mean, I really think that if he had had the chance, he would have hurt him
Yeah.
somehow.
And
Yeah.
I don't, and see, here's where my mentality's wrong. That's justified to me. If I can't, like I said, I got this little granddaughter, and if someone ever looked at her bad, it is Katie, bar the door, man. I mean, it's, that's my baby. I'm not gonna, you're your dad's baby. There's no way. It's this what I'm talking about, where there's just multiple, these people that do things and they think, well, I don't know, like how they have no compassion on somebody, not only on the victim, the direct victim, but on all of the other people that are affected. Yeah. And every person has people that love them. Every person has family and friends and all that.
And I was really trying to focus on that during the attack, because I was telling him I was telling him fake facts, but I was trying to have him put a face with a name, and I was trying to have him see me as a person.
Yeah.
I was saying, I have family that's going to want to see me again. Do you have any family? Like, trying to get him to empathize and like find ways that I could find commonality with him. And I was trying to do that during the attack. And I think that, and maybe that did nothing for me. Like, he didn't empathize with me, but he didn't hit me with what he hit Chris with, right? He hit Chris with a 52-pound rock.
I know. Oh.
And he didn't hit me with that rock. That rock was sitting there. Maybe I had talked to him to the point that his adrenaline was less, right? I mean, maybe it wasn't because of what I had said. It just was the time that I spent with him. His adrenaline was less. So he couldn't lift that 52-pound rock anymore. He had to hit me with something else. So, if I had been hit with that 52-pound rock, I wouldn't be here talking to you today, possibly. So, there was something that I did right that he didn't hit me with the same thing that he hit Chris with. So, and again, that's focusing on, I don't really go back to that night, but it's focusing on like a good thing that I did. And
absolutely.
I try to focus on, that's what people are like, if you could go back and change one thing, like what would you change? And I'm like, it's hard to say, because I know that I would make Chris would still be here, and all of my attackers' victims would still be here. But I don't know if I would, it's really hard to say that I would change everything that happened because of all the good that's come from it, right? The Holly's house. I don't even know if I'd have my sons or my husband if this hadn't happened, right? I didn't meet my husband till afterwards. So, and I got a job because I was bored. I only had one class, and I met him at that job. Like, would that have happened? I don't know. Yeah. There's so many things in my life now that are so good, that are so amazing, and I don't know if they would have happened had all of these things fell into place. And that if I could go back and say I would take this all away, I would still want my life's focus to be where it is today.
Hey, you know,
I don't even know if
I'll go Bible. God uses all things,
I know.
that works together for the good of those, man, is what it is.
One little change thing could have been the wrong outcome.
Yep.
Right. So I think you're so strong just listening to you talk, and just, I don't know. I think everything you did was the right, the right moment.
The bottom line is, I say this at my church all the time. That's one of my favorite little taglines. Is, and this goes for all of us, man. Is if we're not dead, it just means God's not done.
Yeah.
And obvious, it's apparent that God had. It wasn't your time to go, and that.
I mean, I had said my last prayer. I mean, I was ready. If it was going to happen, I was ready. I mean, I told Chris's parents this too. Because they thought Chris was so angry and that he probably was so mad when this all happened. And I told them, I was like, no, there was this peace, and I cannot describe it, but there was a peace that came over us both that and I could only assume that it was God, just he was watching over us and that he was there with us.
Yep.
I don't know, I can't describe it, but that this peace that came over us, and that definitely came over me, and made me calmer. And it made me, when you have things like stress like this, there's like the squirrel that runs in your chest kind of feeling. And I mean, it sat on my chest and it just said, calm down. It's gonna, and Chris's last words to me were, everything's gonna be okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, they are for me. I mean, everything has been okay. That.
I think that's a perfect segue. Let's talk about some good stuff.
Absolutely.
Give us the rest of your life, right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So the trial happened. He went away. He's gone. He got what he deserved. Period. But then at this point, you've made a choice that you're going to use the experiences in your life for good.
Right.
And so tell us kind of how it went after that.
Well, I started speaking in around 2000. I think it was when he had been apprehended. He had given himself up. And I thought, and I think I spoke maybe the year before that, and I didn't release my name. I didn't tell anybody I was doing it, and I didn't release my name to the media because the media still had never published my name. And then once he was apprehended, I let the media publish my name. And so I've started to see that I could use the media to help get my story out. And so I started speaking at the University of Kentucky to 700 women that were entering the University of Kentucky to join sororities at the University of Kentucky. So there were 700 women going through recruitment.
So your first talking gig was the 700 people?
Yes.
That's a big start.
If you want to learn how to do public speaking, do it in front of 700 people.
You learn real quick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the very first time I did it, I was reading every single word I said. And I actually read an article that a guy that I went to high school with had written. He went to Xavier, and he had written it for the Xavier newspaper. And I started out by reading it. And he says at the end of it, because he doesn't say my name in it, but he talks about this horrible thing that happened, and he says at the end, he says, and I had a crush on her all of 8th grade. And 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 he's talking about how it, like you said, you don't realize these stories we're numb to these stories until it's someone that we know.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I mean, I read that whole article the very first time I spoke, and then I read every single word I said, and I was crying through the whole thing. I didn't even know if people heard me. And I did it in the same format I still do it today. I mean, I let people ask questions. And and then for like 30 minutes, I let people ask questions. And I still do that to this day. I don't necessarily cry all the time. I still cry, but not all the time. And I mean, I still, though, every time I go out and speak, I let people ask questions. But that's really how it started, was that I went and did those speaking engagements, and I did that for 7 years in a row. And I started to see the power that was coming from that, right? It empowered me. I was getting people coming up to me saying, "Thank you so much for telling your story. Like you're so strong, and it meant so much to me." Or, "Thank you so much for telling your story. I feel like I can talk about what happened to me now." Or, "Thank you so much for telling your story. You know, I'm gonna go out and like volunteer and do things now that I was like this. It helped me to know things that I didn't know about already." And what I started to realize is that it was creating an awareness, right? I didn't have the perfect safety talk. I didn't have the perfect thing to say about how to be safe. What I had was telling you the story of what happened to me, and then maybe how you can make some different decisions that something like this wouldn't happen to you, right? Or that you can make sure that you're always 4 people walking, that you're never 2, that, you know, or whatever it is, whatever you take from my story, that you can help maybe make different decisions that something like this wouldn't happen to you. But to know that if it does happen, that there is life after it does, and that it's going to be okay. And so I started to realize that as I'm speaking, and I started to want to do it more and more, because I realized the power. He was losing all the power, and I was gaining it all back by telling my story. So I started to realize that, and I started to realize. So I was speaking to anybody that would listen. And I spoke. I was in Evansville. I was working for my dad, so he let me get off and speak whenever I could, right? So I was speaking to every Kiwanis group, Rotary group, anybody that would have me. And so I'm speaking to everybody, and I spoke to a visiting nurse association. I remember it, and it's just amazing. I remember sitting in my car after I spoke to one of these groups, because they had said to me, "How can we help you?" And I was like, "I don't know." I was like, I don't align with do I need to align with an organization? And then I started to think about it. And I remember sitting in my car thinking about it. I was in the Donut Bank parking lot, and I'm sitting in my car, and I'm probably eating a Long John, a chocolate Long John.
Best donuts ever,
right?
by the way.
On the planet?
Right?
Facts.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, like, what do I need to do? Do I need to start a foundation? Do I need to get with an organization that's already in Evansville? How can people help me? And I'm like thinking, you know, what do I need to do? And I'm trying to talk to people. I'm talking to my dad. I'm talking to my husband. I'm talking to people to try to figure that out. And I get this phone call, I think the next day at work or a couple days later at work. And I get this phone call from this police detective in Evansville, Brian Turpin. And he says, "We want to start an advocacy center in Evansville, and we want to name it after you. Would that be okay?" And I'm like, "What?" First I had to Google what an advocacy center was, because I had no idea what it was, right? And I'm like, "What?" I was like, "Wait a minute." I was like, "You want to name it after me?" And I was like, so this is going to be like a nonprofit? And he was like, "Yeah, we're going to start this, or it's going to be an organization. We're going to apply for nonprofit status, and we're going to, you know, it's going to be where victims are going to come to be interviewed." And I was like, okay. I was like, first of all, you know, just know that I was looking for something to get involved with. So yes, I would like to be involved. Yes, you can name it after me, but I'm going to have to be a little more involved. And I was like, so let's do this together. And so he was like, I need all the help. So we joined together, which it just the fact that the way that happened was just a phone call that he made to me, you know. I mean, it's amazing the timing that it occurred, because I was looking for something at that time.
That's
right?
what we call a God thing.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I know that that's where that came from. And so, I mean, I completely know that was all meant to happen. And so, and that's what I say now is, you know, I don't know what the next thing's going to be. Right. Like, I mean, I'm just kind of waiting for what God has next for me. Right. You know, like I'm not awesome. Done. I'm not done.
It's amazing how good life is when we get to that point where we're like, hey, what's next, God? Yeah. You know what I mean? And we kind of just are open to, well, hey, whatever your will is, I'm
here I am.
I've been in the I've seen what really bad was, and then seen what you turned it into. So, you know, I trust you no matter what's going to happen.
And what year was that when you were approached?
It was 2003. Okay. 2003.
So here we are over 20 years later.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and that was 2003. And then, so we started Holly's House, which at the time we were in development for 4.5 years. And we very much wanted to open 100% debt free. That was our goal in the development. So that's why it took 4.5 years, because we were trying to get everything donated. And I mean, we were talking to everybody and trying to get the word out. And I mean, even, this was before, we started trying to develop Holly's House before Resendez's even execution. So, I mean, and it was crazy because when he was executed, I was actually in Washington, D.C. receiving an award that Billy Bolin had actually won the year before me, right, for the playground that he did.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he had won it the year before me, and then I went to Washington, D.C., and they gave me the same award. They don't tell you. There's over 100 people. It's a dinner in like Union Station in New York City. And they like give out 5 awards, and I was one of them. And they gave me it was called the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis Award, Greatest Award for Public Service.
Wow.
And so I'm actually at that event. Oh no, I'm sorry. It was in Washington, D.C., not New York City. It was in Washington, D.C. And so I'm at that event in Washington, D.C., and the execution is happening. I mean,
right
so
on.
I mean, that's where I was. And so, I mean, I put out a statement about the execution because I was like, I'm too busy focusing on the good over here. Like, I don't even have time to focus on that. Right.
It's poetic, right? Like
it really is.
Coincidence? I don't think so.
Evil's dying and life is blooming over here, at this thing.
But Holly's House didn't open until 2008. So, I mean, I felt like in 2006, I was like, you guys are prematurely giving me this award. Like, it's not even open yet. The award was for a lot more than just Holly's House. But I mean, I was like, I want to get Holly's House open. So could you wait for it to be open before you give me this award?
If they gave it to Billy Bolin, you way deserve it.
Yeah. We love you, Billy.
You hear me, Bill?
But that was that. And actually Holly's House opened in 2008. It opened in September of 2008. So that was the 4.5 years of hard work by Brian and I both to get that opened. And we did open 100% debt free. And I mean, they've been doing amazing work in our community ever since.
Yeah, and that's not easy. I mean, we know. So we've got a non-for-profit called Love the 812. We do all kind of stuff. We feed people, and we one of the big things that we do is we have these. We get prom dresses and young and boys clothes donated, and so anytime they have a school dance, we open up our building over there and we let them come in and they get to shop and get their outfits and all that stuff, and that's not nowhere near as I'm just saying. I know the amount of work that goes in to launch a nonprofit, especially like you said, to go in debt free like that. That's amazing. And the amount of people I know that you've helped, through that center. It's one of those things where if you live in the Evansville area, which I know a lot of the people who are going to see and listen to this don't. That's a household name now. If you hear Holly's House, everybody knows what it is. Like it's not like it's like what's Holly's House. Everybody knows what Holly's House is. So that's amazing, man. It just proves if you no matter what goes on in life, no matter how bad situation seems, that it's not whether bad things happen, it's how you respond when they do, and your response to something that is let's just be honest about it. I know bad things happen to everybody. That's just life. Very few people will ever experience anything like you did. That is a very you are in a tiny minority. Thank the Lord, absolutely. But the fact that, like I said, getting back to where we were kind of in the beginning, where you had a choice, man. That could have destroyed you, and instead you were like, oh no, it's not going to. You made that decision.
I remember actually when I made that decision.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, I was actually still in the hospital. I was only in the hospital for 5 days, but it was probably about the 3rd day, and I had given my deposition to the police detective, And I remember being with my sister, and she sat with me through the deposition. And I remember thinking, like, okay, like, because when I had to tell the story in the deposition was really one of the first times I had to tell the story. I mean, I had to tell it to my parents and to my sister, but it was one of the first times I had to tell my story to like somebody else, as kind of a stranger. And I thought, okay, I was like, look, I remember thinking like, okay, you can crawl into a hole and like be in the hole for a while, like, and it would be okay. Like, you're allowed to do that. You can be in the hole and crawl in it and lay down and stay there for a while. And I was like, but then you could do that, or you could do something. And I didn't know what the do something was. It wasn't like I thought I'm going to write a book and I'm going to start Holly's House and I'm going to do all these amazing things, right? I'm going to go out and do public speaking. It was that I'm going to get up each day and find a reason to smile. I'm going to get up each day and, you know, make sure I'm breathing and taking care of myself. And it didn't mean, it just meant that I wasn't going to crawl into the hole. Yep. And that I was going to do something that wasn't crawling into a hole. And, you know, I think that's a choice that a lot of people have to make, is that they have to, it's a choice. And that's what they have to realize, is that it's a choice, that you're not a victim, that it's a choice, and that you can live. And even if you can't find a reason to smile, because finding a reason to smile every day is a very good goal to have. That is a very good goal. But even if you can't find that, just getting up every day and brushing your teeth, and these basic things that are such a good thing for anybody that has been through trauma, that has been through something terrible. You've just had the worst thing that you could ever think possible happen. And the best thing you can do is to go to sleep and get good sleep and get up the next day and brush your teeth and live and just be. And that's doing something. It's not some grandiose thing. Doing something is just getting up every day and doing what you can. Yep, absolutely. So I just lost my aunt a couple of weeks ago, and she was my buddy. She was 17 when I was born. We were so she's my younger aunt, and she was just we were all super close to her. She buried 2 kids. She went through all kind of stuff that would hate, but she always had a smile on her face, and she told everybody. She said, "Hey," they were like, "Well, what do you do? How do you do it?" She's like, "Hey, I get up and show up. You know, period. That's the decision I make. I'm going to get up and I'm going to show up." And she would, and I think she had one more up in there, wasn't it? She prayed. She said, "Yeah, my wife quotes this all the time. She said, get up, dress up, show up. Get up, dress up, show up." Yeah, that's what it was. And that's what you've done. That's what you've done. Right? Yeah, absolutely. That's what I've tried to do. Yeah. I'd say you're pretty successful at it. I would say. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, the success is. I tell people, like, people ask me if I'm retired, because, you know, I left Holly's House and then I had my kids. That's really why I left Holly's House, was I was trying to have kids. Mm-hmm. And I went through 7 years of infertility to have my kids. So, I mean, it was a rough time having my kids, and so they are miracles, true miracle, 2 sons that are my world. And I mean, I've been really busy being with them, right? And so I that's the season of life that I'm in. I'm busy with my kids, going to school, and like that's what I'm doing. And people are like, "Okay, so you're retired?" And I'm like, I don't think I'm retired. I was like, I don't know what's happening next, but I don't see it as retirement. People ask me, "Are you retired?" I'm the tired part. I don't know about the retired part. I'd say those boys are a full-time job. Absolutely. Yeah. I know. For some reason we had 4 of them. Yeah. And man, they wear me out. And they all got bigger than me. I'm a big guy. I know my 13-year-old is almost as tall as I am. And I mean, he is waiting for the day that he is taller than me, which I think it might be tomorrow, because I feel like he's growing, you know, like an inch every day. So we all laugh about it. He's the biggest lover ever. But my baby, which is his nephew, and pretty much his nephew too, but he is like 6'8", and
big as a house, and we all just, he can put us in his pocket and walk around with us if he wants to, but he's one of those big gentle giants, got the biggest heart, but he's a protector, right? Yep. And I love that about him. And so I don't think you're retired. I think it's that's a beautiful thing where you're at in life, is to be able to live the life you lived. You're literally, you're just in the middle of God's gifts.
Yeah, I'm blessed. Yeah. I'm very blessed. Yeah. That is the truth.
Absolutely. Well, it's been amazing. And we appreciate so much that you come on and that you talk to us, and that you're so candid, and hopefully we built a relationship here that'll go on, and we've even got, even though he's our silly friend Billy Bowen in common. I'm sure you know Phil too, Philly Phil.
I do know Philly Phil.
Did you see this? Is this the one? Oh yeah, did you see Crying Phil on there?
I have a sticker of Crying Phil.
Oh man, I've got all kind of stuff. I got like some coasters and stuff that they give us, because Phil was on the show in episode 2, and we love him. So, but again, what an amazing story. What an amazing. It's hard to really put into words, attitude, but that I feel like that doesn't give it really what it deserves. Like I said, I feel like you I know that's my aunt's words, but I do feel like you got up, dressed up, and showed up, and you're still doing that. And thank you for what you do in this community, because that means something to me. We even though we didn't know it, we work together in this community, to try to make people's lives better, and I think that's always important. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. And I mean, anybody can find me on any of the social media sites that you guys are all on too. So I want everybody to know that I'm always Holly K. Dunn on all my socials, because Holly Dunn was a country singer. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
She passed away, but she was a country singer, and so she has songs out there. She has one called Daddy's Hands that everybody loves.
Absolutely.
But I am not her. So I can actually sing a little bit, but not like that. No. And I cannot play the guitar. So, but I'm Holly K. Dunn on all the social sites, so anybody can find me on all the socials.
That's funny. So you do sing a little bit, huh? That's awesome. You need to come out to one of Jimmy's shows one time, man. He'll get you up on stage with him.
I will get you up on stage if you'll do
it. I sang in like my sister's wedding, and I've sung, in some times that it definitely was a sorry.
No, that's okay. You don't have to say you're sorry on this show.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, I won't then. But no,
don't.
We'll edit that out, actually.
But I haven't sang on any. I haven't sang lately. Let's say that.
Well, whenever you're ready, you let me know.
Okay, I will.
Yeah. Jimmy DeTalent. He plays out local. When's your next show, man?
I'm playing at the Pepper's Ridge Winery this Saturday in Rockport.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When's your next other show?
Locally? Well, that is kind of local, but in Evansville, be Primetime North on the 24th.
Oh, right on.
That 24th. Rhymed.
It did.
Primetime North on the 24th, and then I'll be at Bud's on the 30th and 31st. Right. 2 nights in a row.
I told you need to get me a schedule.
I know. I'm a slacker.
You are a slacker.
Yeah.
But this is something that we always do, and Holly, hopefully you enjoy this for our last hurrah. Don't forget, click like, click subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video, and nobody does it like my partner Jimmy. Jimmy, say bye.
Well, bye. That's if you like Tombstone. That came from the...
I love Tombstone.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah,
that was awesome. Yeah, that was really, really, really good. Thank you so